Hello, everyone. Matthew Heggem. I am here with the one and only Ingrid Edstrom. And
Hi.
we are so excited to welcome you into the Accounting Alchemy Network space, whether you're on Facebook right now or LinkedIn, or perhaps both. We definitely welcome you to the conversation that we're having. If you're here, it's because you've been invited. We love you. We appreciate you. We honor and respect your thoughts, your ideas on what's possible for the profession. And so we decided one of the things that needed to be done was to really build a strong vocabulary around the work that we're doing as a community. So you'll notice, for example, that somewhere in this environment is a link to some of the vocabulary. And I bring that up because one of the words that I was introduced to when I first started talking with Ingrid about this, and when we had our first brainstorming retreat and kind of came up with the idea of this community, was this word regenerative. And to be honest with you, I didn't really understand what the word meant. I didn't have any context. I kind of had my own opinion, for better or worse. But nonetheless, we thought, well, hey, let's start with maybe a word that might be new to some of us, like it was for me, and break it down a little bit and get some context. So, Ingrid, you were the one that introduced me to that word. I still don't think I have a memorable working definition just yet, to be fair. So why don't I just pass it to you for a moment to maybe say a few words about what that word actually means and why it's even relevant really to the conversation that we're having here.
Sure, of course. So regenerative is kind of an important word in the way that our society and culture is shifting and changing, because a lot of people are used to thinking about sustainability. We have sustainable agriculture, we try to recycle, we try not to use more resources than our planet has. But the word regenerative takes that to the next level, acknowledging that we have already pulled more resources from our planet and our communities past a point where sustaining it at the current level is going to work. We can't just sustain things where they are at this point. We need to be investing back into these systems. It needs to be regenerating. And so that's what regenerative really, really focuses on, that we can't maintain our forests where they are at this point. We need to plant more forests. We can't maintain oil where it is right now. We need to find other solutions that don't involve stripping the carbon from our planet. And finding where our relationship in the accounting profession has impacts in all of these different things all over the world, all these other ideas, because when it comes down to it, everything is connected. And so looking into what you're doing in your businesses, looking into what our clients are doing in their businesses, and asking the question, are our business practices regenerative? Are our culture and social practices regenerative? Are we putting more back into the systems than what we are taking? Are we truly taking care of each other? And that includes our planet.
Got it. That's clear. And it makes perfect sense in the context, I think, of at least the seeds of the ideas or the conversation that we were having. I recall, if I'm not mistaken, I recall that conversation including the word sustainable, which is what you're saying here. And what's interesting about that is, I think we use the word sustainable as like a buzzword, right? We and not for nothing, it's a good thing. I mean, we do want some sustainability here, right? And that's important. And especially as we talk about, building socially conscious business practices. Yes, we want to be sustaining certain things that are supportive of community. But what you're underscoring that I think is really essential, and I recall this because one of the influences or the inspirations rather for the community that we're creating and the work that we're doing with AAN. Is that it's in fact inspired by nature. It's inspired by ecosystems. It's inspired, it's inspired by these things. And so, I'm curious if you can, maybe paint a little bit of a picture of either one of two things. Either one, maybe highlight some of the elements of this concept of nature as a metaphor for what we could be doing, which I know is like super rich, and there's a ton of stuff to say about that. And then ultimately, I'd love to bring it to the conversation of, okay, well, what does this really mean in practice? How do we actually engage in regenerative practices as a profession? So what say you, my friend, on said item?
I'm nerding out over these questions right now. That's what I say. So first off, another word that we probably need to add to our terminology list that we are developing to answer your question about this idea of inspired by nature. There is actually a term for that. It's called biomimicry. When the things that we do mimic things in nature, because we recognize that nature has already developed over the course of millions of years some pretty effective systems that are working really, really well. And if we can do it the way that nature has set it up to be done, we're more likely to succeed. So biomimicry is the word for that. And when we think about how might this look in business and where business can mimic nature, some of the words that we're using. So when we look as accountants at a report and say to a business owner, oh, this thing that you are doing in your business, that is unsustainable. It's not going to work out. You keep perpetuating this same problem. And if you keep going the way you've been going, your plane is going to crash and burn here. And we use that terminology of unsustainable in business fairly frequently. But then we maybe get into, hey, could this be sustainable in business? But we don't always get into, could this be regenerative in business? We have it shift from sustainable in business to profitable in business. And if we're able to shift our focus a little bit to, maybe it's not all about the profit. Maybe there's a little bit more that we could be looking at. Maybe there's more that as accounting professionals, we can help our clients to quantify and measure. So an example that's coming to my mind is relationships with team members. If a person on a business's team is overworked and getting burned out because they have a bunch of things going on in their lives and their workload is overwhelming them, but they also, maybe have some personal things that they're having a hard time talking about, that situation is mentally, emotionally, energetically unsustainable for that person and by extension for that business. And so by developing practices within our businesses that truly take care of our team members and encourage people to open up more and help them to feel safe in their working environments and make sure that they're not overworked, or if they are overworked, how do we support them more effectively? Those would be examples of regenerative practices. It's looking deeper at a holistic picture within the business to ensure that all of the different systems that depend on each other are actually working together. So in a biomimicry kind of perspective, what we're doing is we're applying permaculture practices to business to make a holistic view of how to run a business and how to offer more holistic advice to business owners. Because what it comes down to, accountants are kind of business doctors to a certain extent. We're the ones reviewing the lab reports and saying, oh, hey, your business's cholesterol is a little high, might need to check that. How do we make it a little bit more holistic so that rather than having to go on cholesterol medication and, all these things that aren't very fun, we can say, how can you change your lifestyle and make this an overall healthier business?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And two things come to mind when you say that, just to put a pin in it, pin in these items. One is being clear about the possibility, right? I mean, one of the questions, the question we're asking is, how can the accounting profession have a positive impact on the world, right? So one of the questions, or one of the things that is really being underscored in what you're sharing is measuring impact, but that impact is beyond the bottom line. And I think there's been talk and even perhaps, if not explicitly, direct work on attempting to create dashboards or reports that highlight some of the impacts that we have on the world around us above and beyond the numbers itself. So what you're saying is like, okay, this is looking at this from the lens of regeneration. How can we actually measure that as an element of impact, right? So that's really interesting. And I think the other thing that you're highlighting that I really resonate with, I remember at one point having to design, and I think this came up in that conversation too, having to design an organizational chart. And I've never been like, a fan of okay, we have this box and we shove this person into it, and then we draw a line, and then have this box and shove that person into it and draw a line, and then we get fixed on this like hierarchical structure. Yeah. Right. And it's also flat. It's it's not there's nothing rich and organic and I'm a dancer and a choreographer, so there's no movement in that. There's no freedom of expression and creativity. And so I remember drawing this, like, and I think I explained, I was like, look, this really should be a 3-dimensional object, right?
Yeah.
But drawing this like organizational structure that was really like an ecosystem, right? An ecosystem of things that supported each other, and things could shift and resources could move around to make sure that the ecosystem overall was healthy and thriving. And I think that's really why ultimately I was excited and am excited about this concept of regeneration as it relates to the mission of AAN and the community that we're building here. So Ingrid, is there anything else you want to throw into the pot of this conversation before we close the video today?
I think just inviting anyone who's watching this video to post your thoughts in the comments on LinkedIn and Facebook and keep this conversation rolling, because especially as we roll into starting our Lyceum discussions, there might be people in our community who have differing ideas or disagree, and this is a safe space for that. That is something that we really want to be able to employ, is some Socratic method where we're able to debate in healthy, effective, supportive ways, different ideas, and learn and grow as a result of them. So really wanting to hear some more ideas from everyone else in this community about these and any other things that are coming to your mind that could help us to help accounting professionals to transform our world in positive ways.
Great. Thank you, Ingrid. I so appreciate you. And just one other reminder, if this is one of the first pieces of content you're engaging with in this network, please do check out the communications framework we built to supplement the ongoing vocabulary lists that we're compiling, which now I think we have a new word, if I'm not mistaken, based on
biomimicry. Isn't it pretty?
Yes, we're going to have a really juicy vocab list. We also are asking you to just be mindful of how you're communicating in this space so that we can continue to cultivate an environment that is really regenerative for those that are involved. So thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Leave your comments below, and we'll see you soon on the next video. Bye now.
Thank you.